All right, well, that's the 15-minute adjournment at the Ad Hoc Committee in Parliament. The head of the Independent Directorate Against Corruption, Advocate Andrea Johnson, is appearing before Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee. Before the adjournment, she earlier told MPs that should the bail conditions of SAPS Crime Intelligence Head Lt General Khumalo and his co-accused be set aside, IDAC would then need to seek a way to protect some of those witnesses. Of course, Khumalo being center of her testimony, he is facing charges of corruption and fraud following the appointment of a 29-year-old employee to a brigadier position in his unit. That case also happening on the outsides and, of course, the outskirts of this particular committee hearing. Now, Johnson's testimony today is important as it follows weeks of hearings and testimony in which we heard that IDAC officials have been implicated in interfering with some of the police investigations, including that of the PKTT. Now, the committee and the Mahlangu Commission also heard from KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lt General Mkhwanazi about IDAC's role in the arrest of Khumalo earlier this year. Mkhwanazi, who also had issues with the magistrate presiding in the Khumalo matter, who has since made it known that he wants to recuse himself, said that the case against Khumalo and his co-accused was merely an HR matter. Now, Khumalo told the Mahlangu Commission, you would recall he ended his testimony at the Mahlangu Commission yesterday. He told the commission that together with the other police officers, they were being targeted with these criminal prosecutions, saying that the charges he faces are a form of retaliation. We'll continue to unpack just some of the testimony that we are hearing from Advocate Johnson. But for now, let's bring in Bongani Mahlangu to help us unpack some of what he makes of the testimony today. Bongani, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. So one of the things that Johnson's testimony was meant to clarify today was to address amongst a laundry list of accusations leveled at IDAC, including, of course, Lt Mkhwanazi's accusations that IDAC's mandate did not allow it to investigate the appointment of the 29-year-old in Lt General Khumalo's unit. In fact, I think Acting Police Minister Professor Kachalia also told the committee yesterday that he was looking forward to Johnson's clarity on why IDAC had arrested and charged Khumalo. Just your impressions around some of what we've been hearing from Advocate Johnson so far.
No, greetings to you, the colleagues in studio and the viewers at home. I think just to put it more generically, with regards to what we have been hearing, not just by the testimony made today, but since the beginning of the Ad Hoc Committee and also the Mahlangu Committee, is that there seems to not be any clarity with regards to the mandate and limitation of mandate that is assigned to either IDAC, IDP, the minister as an executive head, the commissioner, and so forth and so on. And what we are seeing is that there are accusations, because of this misunderstanding, accusations of people or individuals acting ultra-virus beyond the powers that they are given. If you are looking at it from a perspective of which you would not be a trained legal scholar, you would not then well understand as to why would such an institution then enter to a point of appointments being made, be it regular or irregular appointment being made, because that would become the competency of the institution making the appointment, meaning the potential employer. And then if someone is aggrieved by an appointment made, if it is indeed regular and that individual has some suspicion of irregular appointment, then you'd find that the state, which is the South African state, would have structures such as the Public Service Commission, of which if you have exhausted internal dispute mechanisms, then you can go to such a structure to raise frustration of an irregular appointment made. And that would not necessarily, case and context, be regarded as a criminal offense, but it could be regarded as misbehaving in the workplace, something that would require certain disciplinary action in order to rectify and remedy. So it's quite interesting what has been happening in the SABC, it's quite interesting about the understanding of the individuals within that space, that sector, with regards to constitutional, legislative mandate, regulations, circulars, and policies.
Just talk to us about also what we have been seeing, between the ad hoc committee itself as well as the Mahlangu Commission, in as far as how these various units within law enforcement have been coordinating and working. It's quite troubling, of course, to see that there is, in a lot of spaces, a different chain of command. There's also a lot of evidence that points to interference in many of these units. Just your sense then, from even a high-level perspective, in terms of how concerning it is what we are hearing in these two entities, and that is, or processes rather, that being the Mahlangu Commission as well as the ad hoc committee.
No, if you look at it, if you read the legislative frameworks that guide all these institutions, be it the SABs, be it the Hocs, which falls under the umbrella of the SABs, the security cluster, the criminal justice system, and so forth, you'd find that our laws are very clear as to what needs to happen and who needs to do what. But when then there's interference, be it political interference, be it internal interference, then all those structures, those systems and controls then are undermined. Case in context, there's a citation made about a certain brigadier course, maybe from the Hawks, if I got it correctly. You'd find that this is an operation of the SAPS, but the Hawks interferes. This case is the interference is because of the individual or where the operation is taking place has connections with a certain substructure of subs, and then uses that connection or leverages of that connection in order to provoke a certain interference in what, in terms of legislation, would not need to happen. So now you find then that lines get blurred. You find that lines get blurred when a minister does not understand their limitations of the powers that are assigned to that minister by either the constitution, by either the acts that guide the SAPs and so forth. So it is not because there are no laws in place or there are no controls in place. But what we have been seeing as a recurring theme is that people tend to undermine what is in place and give instructions where they do not necessarily have the power to give instructions, where a certain police commissioner who would have headed like the Hawks and is probably familiar with the personnel in the Hawks would then utilize that familiarity, those relations and so forth in order to interfere elsewhere. You'd find that the head of the Hawks at the time as well, I think Libya as well, you find that the individual is conflicted and they issue out unlawful instruction. So it's not because of there's no control, but the individuals there are what I am picking up to be the problematic element with all these things. And it gives a case and context that South Africa does not have structures, systems, and controls. It's a banana state where anyone who just because of the office that they are bearers to can do whatever they like. And that's not the case in terms of the legislative framework.
Yeah, Bongani, before we wrap our conversation, and obviously looking at the time before the ad hoc committee returns, very quickly, the issue, just to your point about direction and mandates. I mean, the issue of having two deputy ministers at SAPS without clear delegated powers is something that has been raised on numerous occasions, particularly at the ad hoc committee. I mean, Dr. Poli Bushielo, when she was testifying, confirming also that she did not receive any delegated powers in writing from a police minister, Senzo Mkhunu, who is on special leave. I mean, how concerning is that, particularly when you look at the SAPS and its role in terms of, providing that security to many South Africans? We're looking at plus minus 180,000 police officers, we were told during these discussions. I mean, how concerning is that, that you have these two deputy ministers within the SAPS and they don't have necessarily those delegated powers?
No, it's very concerning because I think the political argument that was made at the time to justify two deputy ministers was because of the scope of work and the realization that one minister would need to delegate certain responsibilities, because if they were to centralize those responsibilities to the minister's office, then there would be problems with regards to being effective, with regards to being efficient. So then you would delegate. But we are seeing here that that never happened. And also it's quite interesting that as so much as it never happened, there was no oversight provided. If you would remember from the previous administration, ministers and their deputies signed performance agreements that were made public. And I think they are still there online if we were to check. So we as South Africans knew what the responsibilities of the minister will be for the political term and what the responsibilities of deputy ministers will be. And we can hold all of them accountable. But when it came to this tenure of administration under the GNU, is that an individual would have ministers. The ministers, I'm not sure if they sign performance agreements, but the ministers also do not then ensure that there's performance agreements for their deputies, and they can only ensure that through delegation of responsibility. They seek to then centralize everything to their office. So it's very problematic. But what is more problematic, it just goes to speak to the administration, the political administration that should flow from the office of the president with regards to the human capital management of the ministers and deputy ministers. So the actual failure is not necessarily with the police minister that is currently under special leave or suspension, but the actual failure is in the presidency that must ensure that all these ministries and the deputy ministries are functional and are responding to the mandate, and because they are spending taxpayers' money according to the ministerial handbook. So that office failed in this case and context.
Bongani, thank you so much for your views. Really do appreciate your time. Political analyst Bongani Mahlangu there, just helping us unpack what we are currently hearing at the ad hoc committee.